What's up, everybody? We're back. Yeah!
Hey, welcome back to a Metalhead's Journey. Hey, so we're continuing down our group of lists here that we're doing. If you guys have been following along, it's not confusing at all, I promise. We're only trying to do 4 lists at one time. No big deal. We've made it back around to the top 20 rock albums list of all time. We are talking about Queen and A Night at the Opera tonight. Dude, what a cool album, bro.
It is.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into it too much, but I am surprised pleasantly.
Yeah,
This record
for sure.
I was just thinking about that today. I was like, I wonder what it was. Because look, I know I'm old, but I'm not this old. But like, this album had to be like extremely different from like everything that was out there at this time. I mean, it's still different.
I was going to say, it's still extremely different than anything out today.
Yeah, I literally have that in my notes. Like, this is one of those albums where, like, there's never been anything like this since or before.
Yeah.
At least not that I've heard.
Sure.
Yeah. So, all right, well, let's hit a little bit of history of the band here and the album, and then we'll get right into it. So, hey, while you guys are here, hit the like, hit the subscribe. Let's know what you think about the album down in the comments. Let us know what your favorite track is. Okay, now the history and everything. This is Queen. This is A Night at the Opera. This is number 19 on the top 20 rock albums list of all time. We have Queen, formed in 1970 as a British rock band from London. Before forming Queen, guitarist Brian May and drummer Roger Taylor were in a band called Smile. Vocalist Freddie Mercury was a fan of Smile, and he encouraged them to experiment with more elaborate stage and recording techniques. Freddie joined the band in 1970 and suggested the name Queen. Bassist John Deacon joined in 1971, 2 years before the release of their first record. Queen have been a global presence in pop culture for more than 50 years. They've released 15 studio albums, including their last album, Made in Heaven, which was released in 1995. They've sold over 250 million records worldwide, were members of the 2001 inductees to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and they won the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2018. Freddie Mercury was diagnosed with AIDS in 1987. On November 23rd, 1991, he publicly revealed that he had AIDS, and the next day died of bronchopneumonia.
Brutal.
A Night at the Opera, released in 1975, is the band's 4th studio album. The album peaked at number 4 on the Billboard chart. The album was recorded at 7 different studios over a 4-month period. It was reportedly the most expensive album ever made at the time. It cost £40,000, which equates out to like just over £370,000 today. The album is generally regarded as Queen's best record and one of the greatest records ever created. The album produced 2 singles, Bohemian Rhapsody and I'm in Love with My Car. No, I'm just joking. Bohemian Rhapsody and You're My Best Friend. So, you know, a lot like Rush. You know, when we talked about Rush before, it was always like, for me anyway, I had always heard the hits, right? So, you know, I knew only of the hits of Rush, and I didn't know any of tracks on a regular album. It's the same for me for Queen. I feel like I've heard just the hits over all the years, Bohemian Rhapsody, obviously, but, you know, songs like Another One Bites the Dust, We Are the Champions. I mean, whatever. There's so many good ones.
And then you find out, like for me, I found out like all those songs are on like completely different records from each other.
Yeah.
Like I kept thinking, like, I don't know, just naively or whatever, that there was like 1 or 2 albums that had like majority of those hits, and it's like, no, not really.
No, they're spread out. I mean, you mentioned earlier that Queen 2 is really good. I mean, Queen 2 has none of the
typical
hits.
Yeah.
So this was my first time through just listening to a full Queen record.
Same.
And so it was really interesting getting to hear a lot of the deep cuts and a lot of the stuff that, you know, that I guess is more interesting to the band versus what was more interesting to the radio. And dude, I have one word written down. It's just wow. The album is so eclectic. There's so many genres represented on the album, and they're all done well. I mean, you have rock, you got hard rock, you have country, You have like classical music.
You have like progressive rock, even.
Yeah.
Vaudeville.
Yeah.
Vaudeville is exactly
Yes.
what I was trying to think of.
I wrote that down.
There's so many genres represented here, and it's amazing how well everything goes together on this album. And it's amazing the sound of the album. And I get it, like we're always going to be listening to a remastered version, but it's still just amazing at the sounds that they were able to get out of their instruments at the time. Dude, I'm fucking blown away by this record. You know, we'll get into some of the top tracks and stuff a little bit later on, but like this top 20 rock album list slaps, right? Like the Rush album was so good, and this album's even better. So whatever number 18 is on this list has a lot to live up to.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Yeah, I'm pretty much in line with you guys, even though I'm the eldest. I had not really listened to a Queen album start to finish, and it's mostly for the same reasons that you guys have said. Like, you become so familiar with all of the hits. When I was younger, I spent a lot of time in bars because my mom was a bar hop, and jukebox is always playing Queen. I mean, I figured I had heard every song, you know. And then I put on this, and I hadn't heard probably 75% of these songs.
Yeah.
And this is a wow album for sure.
Jonah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to mirror most of the same sentiments. I mean, I don't know how much we touched on it, but the name of the album is kind of what it's all about. It's supposed to kind of give this feel of opera, theatricality, and it really feels like a theatrical performance. Like, we threw out the word vaudeville. I have that written down for one of the songs. And one of the things I really liked about it is, like, from the get-go, from the first song, Death on Two Legs, like right out the gate, it showcases just how great the vocals are on this album. Like, the vocal performances, not just from Freddie Mercury, but from the rest of the band as well, is outstanding. The production values are great, and it's a showcase of like the songwriting ability and the composition skills of Freddie Mercury and the other guys. It's just, I was definitely blown away. This is the first time I listened to a full Queen album as well, and I was very impressed.
Yeah, Jonah, you bring up A Night at the Opera. So funny enough, the three of us, in a previous life, we had this little YouTube show and podcast called Three Guys on the Mic, where we were working our way down the American Film Institute's top 100 list, top 100 movies of all time. And funny enough, one of the movies on there is A Night at the Opera, and Queen straight up lifted this name for the name for this record from that movie.
Yeah.
And it was a Marx Brothers movie. It was pretty good. I remember we mostly liked it, but they actually became pretty good friends with Groucho Marx through the recording of this, since they kind of lifted the name of the record and everything. So thought that was an interesting tidbit. Go ahead, Dave. I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, you're fine. Dude, it's just like this album, again, kind of what y'all have already said. It's almost like a collection of short stories, in the sense that, or you could, like scenes in a play, right? Like every song is so unique and distinct from one another. And I realize God Save the Queen is kind of the last song, but it's not an original track. It's obviously part of their country or whatever. But like it kind of ends with Bohemian Rhapsody, right? And I imagine like when the credits are rolling, if this was a movie, then God Save the Queen is over the credits, right? As you're kind of leaving the theater. But like, I was just so impressed with how they tackle all these genres so successfully. And I don't know why, but it takes real talent to be able to do that without sounding like you don't know what you're doing. Yeah, forced, or just like you're just like most of the time we want albums to be cohesive. And it's like, it's weird because on paper this shouldn't be cohesive, but it just works. And I don't know if that's because it's just the era. So like your brain gives like 70s 60s and 70s music like a certain pass. But man, this is just so good. I was so impressed with this record. And it's the easiest 43 minutes like ever. Like
Yeah.
So I'm glad you said 43 minutes, right? Because we did an album sadly recently that was like
Sadly.
97 97 minutes long, but there was this one really good part of it, this 42-minute song. And I kept thinking the whole time I was listening to this record, it reminds me so much of that. Like Dave, like you being the big Dream Theater fan here, like did you pick up any of that? Did you feel that way at all, or do you feel like this is something totally separate and you don't think them or Dream Theater kind of bleed into each other? Because I think they do a little bit, especially after hearing that 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence song.
I mean, Dream Theater are influenced by Queen. That is one of their influences. So, I mean, sure, I'm certain that they took some influence from this, but no, I do know what you mean. Like where like these songs, you go from Death on Two Legs straight into Lazing on a Sunday Afternoon, and like on paper, I shouldn't like Lazing on a Sunday Afternoon, but it's so good.
The shit slaps, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it helps that it's 1:08, but dude, it's just like the record is so like it knows what it is. Like it's so like self-aware. Like these guys are just doing what they want to do in the studio, right? And it's kind of crazy. Like they clearly had so much control in the studio. Like I know the studio, especially at that time, they didn't want them putting out 6-minute long singles or like, having an 8-minute long song in Prophet's song where there's like 3 minutes of essentially a cappella. I mean, I know there's like studio tricks in there as well, but it's just vocals for 3 minutes. Like, especially at that time, like they want radio friendly 2.5, 3-minute long songs. And, Queen is just putting out whatever they want to, and all the members of the band can sing, except for the bass player. I've read online that people say, like, they joke with his last name that he can't sing. But then some people online saying that he just didn't like to, like as much. Maybe I don't know.
He ended up being a pretty good songwriter at the end of the day. He wrote some of the big songs. So
yeah. So, but overall, I mean, I'm gonna be very shocked if our score average at the end of this isn't pretty high.
Yeah. So you mentioned Bohemian Rhapsody earlier, and you mentioned it's kind of like 6-minute singles, right? So there's a great scene in the Bohemian Rhapsody movie. If you haven't seen it out there, you should definitely go watch it. I'm not saying it's a comprehensive review of the band's history because, look, the band put it out, so obviously it's always going to paint themselves in the best light possible.
I'm sure it's got some things that are not right.
Yeah, but there's a great scene of them like bringing the completed record to the record executive, which is played by Mike Myers. Funny enough, and there's always the great line where he's like, "Bohemian Rhapsody, nobody's ever gonna headbang to that in the back of their car or whatever." Yeah. So it's a nice callback to Wayne's World, right? Which is funny. But so they're all arguing in the office about what's supposed to be the single, and the band all wants Bohemian Rhapsody. And that's his exact point is like, you can't put a 6-minute song on the radio. They only want 3 minutes. And this dude is enamored the whole time with I'm in love with my car. So it's a great scene. If you haven't watched it, you should check it out. But, it's funny to think back that the 6-minute song was like untouchable by radio. Like nobody would play it. They didn't want to play it. And it was like that big of a deal, which now you think back and it's like, I mean, yeah, radio is kind of still the same way. Like, they're not playing a ton of long songs, but like Bohemian Rhapsody is, I mean, it's a classic song.
Like if you listen to classic rock radio wherever you live, and assuming you had it on for 24 hours or you tracked every time, every track that they play in a given 24-hour period, I'm almost guaranteed every single day they play that song at least once.
Have to.
I don't know anybody on earth who hasn't heard that song. And if I remember correctly, the story on that song is that a radio DJ got their hands on it and played it like 15 consecutive times on the radio. and every radio station after that started getting phone calls to play it on their radio station.
Nice. It's probably one of the 10 weirdest songs that I don't know what that list looks like for me, but it's probably one of the 10 weirdest songs that I know that I've heard. But dude, it's a jam. Like every time it comes on, it's immediately I don't know, look for you guys, Dave, you don't like Enter Sandman. So look, you may
I just think Enter
Bohemian
Sandman's
Rhapsody.
overrated. I didn't say I didn't like it. It's a good song.
Yeah, cool story, bro. So I don't know. You may skip Bohemian Rhapsody when it comes on the radio, but it's one of those
I never skipped
it's an instant stop wherever it's at, and you gotta get all the way through to the headbanging part every time.
Yeah.
I mean, I listen to the whole thing. Like, you got to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
So can we do this now? I'm sorry to drop this on you guys now, and I hope this doesn't make you like have to alter your list, but can we just all agree that Bohemian Rhapsody is like this all-time great classic song, and it doesn't even need to be on our top tracks list because we just understand that it's like this
Number
tippy
one.
top song.
Well, it's good that you did that because I already had 4 specifically for that reason. Because I felt like of course Bohemian Rhapsody is probably going to be everybody's number 1, unless somebody shockingly doesn't have that as their number 1. Then I would say do whatever you want. But if you have it as your number 1, then let's just assume it's your number 1.
I think it's just understood. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
So we'll see when we get there. We'll see. Jonah looks like he didn't pick it. Let's get into the MVP of the record here. What'd you guys think? Jason, what'd you think?
It's hard to go against Mercury. I will say that this album is extremely unique in the fact that I think there's at least one song in which he is not on the song at all.
You're in love with my car. I'm in love with my car.
He does. He does backup vocals on that one. But
I think Roger Taylor handles the entire vocals for that song.
Yeah, and the fact that you have songs that are sung by other band members, written by other band members create the entire, the sections of it. They put it all together, and then Mercury comes in and sings it. It's hard to just go with him, but his voice is just so fucking powerful in these songs. And the fact that I know that for the most part he has some input, whether it's even just if it's just the piano in the background or something else that's part of the song, it's hard to go against.
I feel like you're shitting on Freddie Mercury a little bit. Like my man wrote the entirety of Bohemian Rhapsody. Like that's a Freddie Mercury only song.
No, I know start to finish.
Outside of the guitar solo from Brian May, obviously, but
Right. And I think I read he actually physically wrote it.
Yeah. No, all 4 of these guys are individually in the Songwriter Hall of Fame. Like you can only do that if you have like individual songwriting credits. So all 4 of these are in there individually.
Like there's a few bands that come, and I feel like we're gonna derail this so hard, but there's like just a handful of bands where all 4 members are just
contribute.
Like not just contribute, but are essential, integral to the success of the band.
Yeah.
Like, and I know the Beatles aren't Josh's biggest thing, but I would say the Beatles are one of those bands as well. Led Zeppelin are another one of those bands where like you can't have them without all 4 of them.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I think I did not, full disclosure, full transparency, I thought basically prior to this that Queen was just 80% Freddie Mercury and 20% Brian May. And that's it. I just thought like, he does everything. He's the singer. He writes all the songs. Like I just assumed the singer wrote all the lyrics for every song and that the guitarist was writing all the music. But I quickly realized that was a dumb take and a dumb assumption. This band is really like a stars align type of situation.
Yeah, Dave, who's your MVP?
I mean,
You're like all being said, it's Freddie Mercury.
I don't know how you don't go with Freddie Mercury. His even the songs that he didn't write that he sings over, his vocals are just
Fantastic.
untouchable. I mean, I'll get into it in a second, but Prophet's song is a perfect example of that. He didn't write that song, but his vocals absolutely make that song. And you know, Death on Two Legs. I mean, literally every song that he sings on is absolutely a banger. But I do want to give us and look, all four of the guys really are MVPs. But Roger Taylor, drummer, super, I would say underrated, at least by me at first. But dude, I'm in love with my car. Spoiler alert! It made my top 3. It's a great song, and just his drumming and dude, his singing is super good. Like this dude could have been a frontman for another band, easy.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Yeah, I mean, I said it before, but the vocal performances by everyone on this album were outstanding all the way through. But it's got to be Freddie Mercury. I mean, you can't not pick Freddie Mercury. There's every once in a while there will be like some videos, a couple of video clips that make the rounds on like social media, where somebody just isolates his vocals on songs like Bohemian Rhapsody or Another One Bites the Dust or whatever it may be, and you can hear, you know, obviously this is the '70s, no post processing, no fancy effects, or even obviously auto-tune didn't exist back then, and he's just an extremely talented singer and vocalist. Like, I mean, pure and simple.
If you just watch, if you've never watched any of the live stuff, if you just watch that Live Aid performance, where I think they did 3 or 4 consecutive songs, one right after the other, they're flawless.
Yeah.
Absolutely flawless.
Yeah. I went on a little rabbit hole of just watching like a lot of Queen videos, and they've been playing a lot in the later years, right? So they did a lot with Adam Lambert, who was from American Idol. And so I was like, I never really listened to much of that. Let me go listen. And I listened to probably about 3 or 4 songs, and I'll never go back. It's not good. Like the dude sings fine, but he's just a cringe performer. And so then I was like, I remember they also had some time with Paul Rodgers, who sang for Bad Company. So if you're a fan of the song Bad Company, or if you like Making Love, you've heard him singing before. And man, dude, he was really good. I think he fit the style more of Queen in terms of the vocals, but just wasn't I guess enough of a flamboyant frontman, right? And I was like, so I kind of compared Fat Bottom Girls across all 3. And so then I was like, let me go watch Freddie Mercury do Fat Bottom Girls. I mean, look, I know this is an obvious statement, but holy shit. Like, dude, it was so much better with Freddie Mercury.
Dude, I mean, the showmanship.
Yeah.
Everything.
He epitomizes, again, we've had this discussion before a few times with frontmen who just exude frontman. And not only does he do that, but he brings so much musical talent in that role.
Yeah.
I mean, it's I don't know, man.
Yeah. He's
a generational talent.
Could say.
Yeah.
He's generational talent.
So anyway, all that being said, I went with John Deacon as my MVP on this record. No, I didn't. Actually, I copped out, and I just went with Queen in its entirety. Just from all the contributions on the record and everything, dude. I mean, look, Freddie stands
where I was,
obviously, but man, I don't think you could have, to Dave's point, I don't think you could have this record without all 4 of these guys.
Absolutely not.
So
it wouldn't sound the same for sure.
Yeah. So we'll go on to top tracks. I'll go first here. So, like I said, for me, Bohemian Rhapsody was an obvious number 1, so I just left that off my list for the sake of conversation. So for me, honorable mention, I have Death on Two Legs. This is a song they wrote about their previous management, because they were in a real shitty position before they did A Night at the Opera, where Their production, they were selling their records to a production company who was then giving them to a record company, and so they were making no money. Like their first 3 records came out and they were broke. So
Yeah, they were like sharing an apartment.
Yeah, their first
Yeah.
record, they weren't even popular. Like their first record didn't sell very well.
So number 3, I got "Love of My Life." Just a good ballad, man. Beautiful song. Number 2, I got the opposite of a ballad. I got "I'm in Love with My Car." Dude, it's just a straight up song about fucking. And I mean, if you watch the Queen movie, man, like Roger Taylor is with female through pretty much every scene of the movie. He's not playing drums. So I'm guessing that was this dude's gimmick back in the day. And then number 1, dude, without a doubt, fucking Prophet song. I mean, this song it jams, man. It is the hard rock song of this record, and it makes you wish. And we talked about this on the reaction last week. Dave, did we ever release that reaction?
It released today.
Okay. It makes you wish that they would write a whole album of just hard rock songs. Like it's so cool. And then Dave mentioned earlier that 3-minute moment in the middle of it with just the vocals going on and all the layers of that and everything. I mean, unbelievable. Prophet song number 1 for me. Doesn't touch Bohemian Rhapsody, but it'd be number 2, I guess, technically.
I'll go next here because mine aren't that different from Josh's, so we'll just keep it going here. My number 3. No, it's a good call on the honorable mention, Josh. I mean, I don't have an honorable mention, but I mean, basically every song on here is good, so I don't have any. There's no skippers. There's no such thing as that on this record. I mean, God Save the Queen. Sure, if you like, but whatever. I'm in Love with My Car. That song is so good. Love that song. Roger Taylor does it great. I watched a live performance of that song. Similar to you, Josh, I went down a YouTube rabbit hole on Queen live stuff from Freddie Mercury days, and it's all so good. My number 2 is "You're My Best Friend." Look, man,
Okay.
I'm a softie. That song is, it's the perfect song to send to your wife. I sent it to mine. I was like, hey, look, this is the song right here. But it's a very good song. I love that song. And then my number 1B, if you want to call it, is Prophet's song. Now, Josh, here's where you and I will disagree a little bit. I don't think Prophet's song is that far behind Bohemian Rhapsody, to be completely honest with you. I think this is one of the best. It's one of the best Queen songs I've ever heard. It is shockingly good. It's crazy that Queen does progressive rock like better than a lot of progressive rock bands that are dedicated progressive rock. 8 minutes, and I did find out this is the longest song they've ever recorded in the studio.
It is. I saw that too.
Dude, and it's a short 8 minutes and 21 seconds. Like, this song does not feel 8 minutes at all. Super interesting.
Well, I think the vocal thing. I think it breaks it up, right? Because you get the whole musical part of the song. You get that vocal interlude, and then it comes back in with like just kind of a slightly heavier version of that. But yeah, you're right. Like if it had kind of all bled together, it probably would feel longer. But you're right. It does feel like it's a brisk 8 minutes.
And that main riff for the verse riff is so good. Ugh, Brian May. And I'm proud of myself. I didn't do this on purpose. I'm cheating. I'm looking at Wikipedia right now because just to help me remember stuff. All 4 of my songs, because if you count Bohemian Rhapsody as my 4, all 4 are written by different guys in the band. So that was nice. But the album is so good. I love all the songs.
Go ahead, Jonah.
All right. So I'll include my honorable mention too, because obviously Bohemian Rhapsody is number 1. But I actually really, really liked "Good Company." I thought it was really good. It's got that same kind of silly theatrical vibe as the other songs, and on top of that, I am a Beatles fan, and it definitely gave me like Sgt. Pepper vibes.
Yeah.
And I really dug that. So that's going to be my honorable mention.
Reminds me of a few Beatles songs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I heard that too.
For sure.
That's
then
that's why it's my one skipper.
You're dumb.
anyway, so my third place was actually Prophet Song. I think it's a great song. I'm not as hot on the acapella interlude in the middle. I think it's good. Like, I mean, the rest of the song is absolutely killer. I mean, it's almost got like proto metal vibes because it's like a darker tone. It's musically
Yes.
a lot of minor keys, stuff like that. It's really, really good. And then for second place, I have "I'm in Love with My Car." I mean, we've all harped on how great that song is. It's just a solid, rock song through and through. And of course, the singing, the vocals on that song are killer. And then number one, Bohemian Rhapsody. It's an all-time classic.
All right.
All right. So, given that Bohemian Rhapsody is number one, this is my top three. Number three, Prophet Song. My sentiment with Jonah is a little bit similar. When you get to the acapella part, it's kind of like, oh, here comes this part again. Then you start singing it, and you don't skip it, and then it go. It happened every single time that I listened to it. So as much as that song could probably be my number one, that one little section, it's not a chore because every time I get to it, I'm like, okay, here's this part, and then I start singing along
section,
to
right?
it. Pretty much. Number two. Let's see. This is a toss up. It literally could be either or, flip flops. I went number two, Death on Two Legs. The first time I heard the song, I didn't really understand what it was about. I loved the melody and the vocal harmony of it. I
Yeah.
didn't understand like what it was about. I did some research to find out what it was about, and I was like, oh, okay. Now let me look at the lyrics. So then I read the lyric sheet as I was going through it, and I was like, oh, this is fantastic. I love that song.
And like when that song comes on, it's first, so that's the first record or first song on the record. And when it comes on, I thought I was listening to the wrong record. Like the production and what was going on at the beginning of that, it was very, very like hard rockish. And so I was shocked to hear that because I was thinking we were in for like a little bit of a lighter, and we were in certain spots, but I was shocked with like the intro to that one. It sounded like something like much more modern.
Yeah. I love that song. And then number one, it should not be number one. I'm in love with my car. Like
Yeah.
I can't believe how good this song. And that's how it is. How is this so good? Now I did do the rabbit hole, and I did go check this song out live, and I actually prefer the recorded version better. In a lot of the live versions, he sings it at a little more up tempo, and doesn't kind of draw out.
I think it's just the nature of
lyrics.
being live. You got the adrenaline going.
Absolutely. Look, we're guilty of that just as much as anybody. So I actually prefer the actual recorded version of it, and it's unfortunate. The last couple weeks I've been sick. I have yet to be able to actually sing this song because my voice sounds like shit. I mean, it sounds like shit when I try to sing anyway. But
You beat me to it.
like it sounds,
I was about to say, yeah.
it sounds really bad with me trying to sing this song, my sore throat. So I'm actually looking forward to maybe in another week being able to just belt the shit out of that song in my car.
I wonder what the general consensus among Queen fans is with that song. Like,
Okay, so I assume two of us watched the movie, and
Yeah.
they make reference to this song as it not being a serious song.
yeah,
May does, and I just every time I've heard this song this last week, it makes me think of that scene, and I'm just like, how? And I can only assume that it played out like this, but during the recording of this album, they're having an argument, and two of the members are not really taking this song seriously, and I think about how in the world can you say that this song isn't a serious song when you have lazing in a Sunday afternoon, uh, and the other kind of vaudevillish seaside rendezvous.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
to be fair to them arguing, this is the most. This song doesn't belong on the album, or it doesn't really fit in the album compared to everything else. I don't know if anybody else felt that. Like, I'm not saying that in a bad way by any means, but it's this could have
It
been on
doesn't
a
fit the
different
tone.
record. Yeah.
Well, man, and I just pulled up like and we're not saying that this is the end all be all. This is just a reference point. I'm looking at the Spotify play numbers, and like I'm in love with my car is sitting at 24 million, which is obviously a lot, but in the grand scheme of the album, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is sixth of the 12. So it's near the.
I would guess Bohemian has over 1 billion.
It's 2.3 billion. Yeah.
Wow.
But so it's like the first two tracks 56 million, then 40 million, and then 24 million, and then You're My Best Friend is at 323 million. So what a lot of people are doing is like skipping. I'm in love with my car. So to Yo's point, it's not like it's a skipper in the sense, but like it is on the back bottom of the
Interesting.
listens.
I do have a question while you got that pulled up. How many listens does 39 have?
67 million, one of the better.
That's impossible.
No,
No.
it reminds me.
Triple.
I have it written down. It reminds me of some classic rock songs that actually just kind of told a story, like start to finish, from like an actual storyline, start to finish. I guess about Space Voyagers or something. I'm not exactly sure what the full story of that song is, but it's almost like a Gilligan's Island Castaway situation, or whatever. They go on this trip, and when they come back, I guess time has passed or something.
Yeah, something. It's very weird. The lowest amount of listens is Sweet Lady at 10 million.
Sweet Lady would be like my number 5. Look, 39 for me. I think a skipper is probably a little dramatic to say, but that song's okay. It's the worst song on the album for me.
Yeah, I don't know if I have necessarily a worse song. I enjoyed all of them, so it's like,
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with the album. The only two songs that I do skip, only because they just don't kind of do it for me, are the two kind of vaudevillian style, Lazing in the Sunday Afternoon and Seaside Rendezvous.
Dude, those are good, dude.
Like,
they're fun.
I love Lazing on a Sunday
and I don't
Afternoon.
hate them.
It's a minute 8
I
seconds.
I don't hate them. I just I'm never like, you know what I want to listen to?
Lazing on a Sunday Afternoon.
Well, I think that's where people, it's where like, how we listen to music is different. Like, if you're just picking tracks to put on a playlist, yeah, maybe you don't pick that one. But if you're listening to it from start to finish as an album, I think it fits with that experience.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm not disagreeing.
All right. Well, hey, we've arrived at the end of the show here. This is where we like to give our score for the record, and just kind of give you guys an idea of how we score these records. For a lot of folks out there, a 7 would be an average score. For us, average is 5. So if anything, it's a 4.9 or below. That's various levels of we would not recommend that you listen to this record. Anything 5 and above is various levels of we would recommend the record. And if we get into the 9 to the 10 range, this is like an all-time classic, gotta listen to it record. So, Jonah, why don't you go first? Give us that score.
Sure. So, for me, my favorite tracks are super high. But the ones that I'm not as big of a fan of, I do like them all. But as Dave alluded to earlier, we all listen to music kind of differently. So I wouldn't give them the tracks that I wasn't a huge fan of. I did kind of score them a little lower than maybe some of you would. But my overall score ended up being a 7.5.
That feels incredibly low.
It does.
I had a feeling you'd say that.
It feels
Like I'm gonna go second because
It's insulting.
I slightly agree with Jonah. This is a great album, but there are a few songs, and I mentioned them already, like that I just because of the way that I score them track by track, like they just don't score all that great.
Yeah.
But I also did not count "God Save the Queen." That is, I think that is more just a throwaway song that they did because it was credited to their prior producer or something. I don't remember the exact story on it. So it was something that they did, and I think they just threw it on here to mock them. So I didn't score that one, but I still got to a pretty decent score. And then I'm going to go ahead and give them a little more of a bump because even with the songs that I can't take seriously, this is just a great fucking album. I gave it an 8.4.
Wow. Is that the highest score that Human Fossil's ever given?
no. No.
Well, is it the highest I've given that's not Metallica? I'm pretty sure like Anthrax got higher than that.
I mean, I don't have every single one of your scores right now in front of me. You gave Painkiller an 8.4. 8.4 is like your peak. Like on the top 50 list, you gave 3 8.4s. Oh no, I'm sorry. Ride the Lightning. Okay, so yeah, non-Metallica. Yeah. Basically, if it's not Metallica, the highest score you'll ever give it is a 8.4 apparently.
Wow.
I'll go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you look like we talked about. Everything on this album is fantastic. I think about this like I think about listening to a couple of records for the first time. So Queensryche's Operation Mindcrime and Dream Theater's Images and Words, where like you put the whole album on and you're just blown away by the capability of people to make this style of music. I've listened to this record, I don't know, 10 times in the last week. This is an all-time classic record. It absolutely belongs on this list, and it probably should be much, much higher above any Beatles piece of garbage.
Whoa. Slow down, sir.
I'm giving this a flat 9.
Flat 9, okay.
All right, Josh.
Before you jump in, like I'm gonna piggyback on what Josh just said. This is the most that I've listened to an album probably since Painkiller.
Yeah. Josh, great men tend to think alike. And that's where I'm at. So for context, I gave Rush's Moving Pictures a 9.1. I agree with Josh. I think this album is an absolute legendary release. I will be listening to this just for fun. Like I was finding myself just jamming this at work just because I wanted to listen to it, not even for the purposes of reviewing it. It's just good, and I know something is good. Like when it really moves me, when I start just on my own going and listening to other albums from the band. I did the same thing with Rush, and I started to do the same thing with Queen. I do think this is just, for me, a hair below the Rush record, but that's just because I tend to be into the more progressive realm of stuff. So it's just a taste thing, but I also gave this a 9. I think this is an absolute legendary release, and I am disappointed in myself that I didn't hear it sooner. Yeah. So that brings us to an 8.48. So I guess I guess Jason got it right. Yeah. So yeah, that's an A tier score from us. Keep in mind, if anybody's disappointed that it's not higher, there's 4 people, 4 different opinions. It's very hard for stuff to get high scores. right?
Dave, where does that sit among some of the records we've scored in the past?
So that is the highest score we've done in this batch of 4 playlists that we are doing.
For sure.
And I'm gonna just skim it for time purposes. Here you go. Operation Mindcrime was at 8.5. And non-Metallica, this is the second highest score we've ever given.
Wow. It's impressive.
Yeah,
It is impressive.
I think it deserves it.
I do too.
So,
Absolutely.
all right. Well, hey, if you think this video deserves a high score, go ahead and hit that like, hit the subscribe. We're putting out weekly metal content right now. We got metal reactions, metal reviews, metal brackets, and all kinds of other cool stuff. And hey, in the meantime, live long and prosper.
Take it easy, everybody.
Later.
Peace.